Alrighty. Okay, so I've got just a little bit of pigment in here that is Rublev's Brown Raw Umber. And I'm going to mix in, I don't know who gave me this pigment, but it's interesting and does some really crazy stuff. It is thick and fat and big particles, like painting in the sandbox. But I think you'll enjoy what's happening. So first, one of the reasons I've chosen this pigment to show you is because this, what's happening with this in this particular pigment, is the same thing that's happening in all of the pigments. For instance, this has already settled, and you can see the pigments are down at the bottom. This red is much more red than that. The pigments are down on the bottom. Changes just by mixing up the pigments. So obviously, if you're going to be using egg tempera, you want to always mix your paints so that you get the same consistency or all the particles on one brush stroke. You load the brush. I think there's a little hair in there. You see all that garbage, crap, particles that are in that pigment. When it dries, I'm going to move this for a second just so you can see. When it dries, if you can get a close-up of that, it's way too grainy to paint on, so I take my famous Blockbuster card, which they don't have anymore, but a credit card will do the same thing. Listen to that. That's just pigments that are the sand that's coming off of there. It will scratch your icon slightly, or your painting, but this is your first layer. This isn't your final layer. But look at the effect that it gives. It's a good idea to do these textured layers at the bottom of your icon so that when you go to put on a new veil of your next color, you'll keep the texture, but add a color. Cool, huh? I think so. So, now we're going to go back to this. I had told you in the very first video to dip your brush in the pigment and make like a paste first with just the little bit of egg and a little bit of pigment. Some people say, oh, well, I'll just put my pigment into the egg. So here I have lots of egg. Oh dear, it's still got blue in it. And I'm using this ionized yellow. And look what happens. It just sits up there on the top. It is so problematic. And I can fool around with it for a very long time. Eventually it will disperse. But it's not really dispersed. I don't think you can actually see it. The sun's gone in again. But with a drop of alcohol, you don't need alcohol for every pigment. You only need it for certain pigments. Can you see that? It's like making little explosions. And now it's dispersed. That little drop of alcohol helps the pigment say, ooh, I think I do want to be in the egg. I've had a few students who say, well, I painted it yellow. And I said, no, you painted it with the egg yolk, and that isn't a color. So be careful that you don't do that little error. So let's try another grainy pigment. Oh, let's do alizarin crimson. That's a good one. Again, my brush is wet. It goes into my jar just a little bit, and see, it just floats on the top, and I can mix and move it around, and it just doesn't cooperate. Keep trying to get it to mix. It will mix eventually. It truly will. But maybe, look at that. And not only that, egg temper is wonderful because I don't know, it's magic. It's the earth, acting like the earth. Our Mother Earth has her own little secrets. So now we have that same yellow, this beautiful kind of chemically yellow there, mixed with alizarin crimson. Don't you just love my labels? Makes a lovely orange, but it is grainy. It's still kind of, but it won't disperse. It might disperse a little bit more over time. It's another thing I should tell you. You mix up your paints in the morning, you paint until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, then you go off and have lunch. When you come back from lunch, your paints are a different color. It's not they're a different color, they're just a different consistency. They've dried out from the air and they are more dispersed with time. Whenever I have to use white, I like to mix up the white in the very beginning of working, because white, titanium white, gets creamier and creamier and creamier as the day goes on. Colors that sink, I already explained that to you. They absolutely go down in the dish. So remember to stir your paints. I think we're good. Bye.